Hello, I'm Cameron Martus, your TA for ATM 101 Weather and Climate of Alaska here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I'm reporting on a week of weather observations from August 27th through 31st, 2012 on the West Ridge of the UAF campus. The local time that I took my observations was between about 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. every day, and I got my National Weather Service observations with which to compare my personal station observations from the Fairbanks International Airport, PAFA. Here's the plot of my temperature measurements throughout the week. The National Weather Service temperature observations show a clear diurnal cycle, with temperatures generally trending higher towards the end of the week. The diurnal cycle appears to be small on the first day and becomes larger on the second day. My personal station observations match very well with the National Weather Service observations. The current observations, the temperature at the time I took the measurements, corresponds well with the minimum temperatures recorded by the National Weather Service, and this is expected because I took my observations early in the morning when temperatures generally are the coolest. My maximum and minimum temperatures also correspond well to the maximum and minimum temperatures that the National Weather Service records. On my first day, August 27th, the air temperature was 48.7 degrees Fahrenheit, 9.5 degrees Celsius at the time of my observation, which was 7:45 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time. The maximum temperature in the last 24 hours was 53.7 degrees Fahrenheit, 12.1 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature in the last 24 hours was 48.2 degrees Fahrenheit, 9.0 degrees Celsius. The barometric pressure was 1,006 millibars, or 29.70 inches of mercury. The wind was at a Beaufort number of 3 and coming from the southwest about 200 degrees. This was indicated by the fact that small branches were moving on the trees by the wind. The sky cover was completely overcast and composed of low broken stratus clouds, although there was no precipitation. On the second day, August 28th, 2012, at 8:25 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time, the air temperature was 43.8 degrees Fahrenheit, 6.7 degrees Celsius. The maximum temperature in the last 24 hours was 52.3 degrees Fahrenheit, 11.3 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature in the last 24 hours, 35.3 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.8 degrees Celsius. The barometric pressure was 1,018 millibars, or 30.07 inches of mercury. We can see that the pressure has risen since yesterday. The wind was at a Beaufort number of 2, coming from the southwest at 220 degrees. This is indicated by the fact that leaves and grasses were moving by the wind. The sky was completely clear. Of course, there was no precipitation. The next day was August 29th, 2012, at 8:34 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time. The current air temperature was 38.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or 4.1 degrees Celsius. The maximum temperature in the last 24 hours was 56.2 degrees Fahrenheit, 13.4 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature in the last 24 hours, 34.3 degrees Fahrenheit, 1.3 degrees Celsius. The barometric pressure was 1,017 millibars, or 30.02 inches of mercury, about the same as yesterday. The wind was from the northwest this time at 3:30 degrees at a Beaufort number of 2, indicated once again by leaves and small grasses moving. The sky, however, had increased and was now 3/4 since yesterday composed of cirrus clouds. There was no precipitation, of course, under cirrus clouds. The next observations, the fourth day, was on August 30th, 2012 at 8:23 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time. The air temperature was 45.2 degrees Fahrenheit, 7.4 degrees Celsius. The maximum temperature in the last 24 hours, 59.2 degrees Fahrenheit, 15.1 degrees Celsius. The minimum in the last 24 hours, 41.1 degrees Fahrenheit, 5.1 degrees Celsius. The barometric pressure was 1,009 millibars, or 29.75 inches of mercury. The wind was the same as yesterday, a Beaufort number of 2 coming from the northwest at 330 degrees. The sky cover was 3/4, but the cloud type had changed to a kind of a mix between cirrus and altostratus. It was a little unclear to tell exactly what it was, but it was definitely some cirrus, some little patches of blue sky in between, but some of it was thick enough that you could call it altostratus. You couldn't clearly see the shape of the sun through it. On the final day, August 31st, 2012 at 8:28 a.m. Alaska Daylight Time, the air temperature was 49.3 degrees Fahrenheit, 9.7 degrees Celsius. The maximum temperature in the last 24 hours was 71.1 degrees Fahrenheit, 21.7 degrees Celsius. The minimum in the last 24 hours, 48.4 degrees Fahrenheit, 9.1 degrees Celsius. The barometric pressure was 1,007 millibars, 29.73 inches of mercury. The wind had shifted to the southwest at a Beaufort number of 2 coming from 240 degrees. The sky cover was still 3/4, little patches of blue here and there mixed in with the clouds, but this time it was kind of a chaotic mixture between stratus, altostratus, and cirrus. It was difficult to tell what exactly the clouds were. There was some precipitation in the form of some drizzle at this time. Here we see the pressure plot from my week of weather observations. The pressure seems to follow a trend of rising and then falling back down again. The personal station observations correlate very well with the National Weather Service observations with no systematic offset. On the first day, my pressure was 1,006 millibars, 29.7 inches of mercury. Second day, it jumped up to 1,018 millibars, or 30.07 inches of mercury. And the next day, it was about the same, 1,017 millibars, 30.02 inches of mercury. On the 30th, the fourth day, it had dropped down to 1,009 millibars, again, 29.75 inches of mercury. And on the final day, it dropped a little bit more, but pretty much the same as the fourth day, at 1,007 millibars, 29.73 inches of mercury. This is consistent with, it seems to indicate that a high pressure system moved into the area, as we see the pressure raises on the 28th and the 29th, and then it falls back again, indicating a low pressure system moving through. On August 27, 2012, here we have the TV weather map showing the surface weather conditions at 18Z or 10 a.m. on August 27th over the whole state of Alaska. We see that there are somewhat spotty low pressure systems around the Fairbanks area, which is somewhere around here on the map, and it's under some cloud cover. We see the cloud cover is somewhat thick right here over the Fairbanks area. There is evidently a cold front that is moving towards the southeast over the Fairbanks area at this time. We also see a low pressure system that seems to be starting to form over here in the Bering Sea and off the coast of Russia. On the next day, August 28th, we see that the cold front has moved farther south and a high pressure system has moved in to take its place. This is consistent with the fact that we saw the increased pressure on August 28th from 1,006 millibars on the 27th, jumping up to 1,018 millibars on the 28th. So we see this high pressure system moving in, bringing with it clear skies. And we can also see this on the TV weather map as we see a lack of clouds, or at least very thin clouds, right over the Fairbanks area. We also see a large clear area right behind the cold front. It seems that the cold front has pushed back the warm air and left high pressure in its place in the Gulf of Alaska here. We see that this storm over here, a low pressure system, looks like a classic picture of a storm is forming over, continuing to intensify over here near Russia. On the third day, August 29th, I apologize for the map being a little blurry, but we see there's still high pressure over the interior Alaska around the Fairbanks area, although some clouds are starting to encroach over that area as we see the low pressure system has gotten stronger and is now moving over, more well defined. It's moving over interior into Alaska, and it's starting to come over the interior. It's interesting that at this point the pressure begins to drop slightly in our observations from 1,018 millibars yesterday, August 28th, to 1,017 millibars on August 29th. We also see cirrus clouds starting to move in from a clear sky on the 28th, which is brought about by the high pressure. We start to see the cirrus clouds moving in. And as we'll see with the next several maps, this is a very classic textbook picture of a warm front or a low pressure system with a warm front starting to move in, where we have first cirrus clouds coming in, and then altostratus clouds, and then stratus clouds beyond that. As we move to the next day, August 30th, we see that the low pressure system has gotten stronger. The central pressure was about 1,000 millibars before, not too low, but now it's down to 992 millibars. The pressure system is now encompassing interior Alaska, and we saw in our observations that the pressure has dropped significantly from 1,017 millibars down to 1,009 millibars, and the cirrus clouds that covered the sky on the 29th have now thickened to include altostratus clouds. On the final day, we see that although the low pressure system has let up a bit from 992 yesterday to 995 millibars of central pressure, we see the pressure has dropped once again at the site to 1,007 from 1,009 on the previous day. And we see also that the clouds had thickened to become a chaotic stratus, altostratus, cirrus mixture. So we get more low clouds coming in as the low pressure system moves closer to the Fairbanks area on August 31st, on the last day of the observations. Now that we've finished our weather report, we'll take one final look at the weather map from August 28th in conjunction with some GOES images also taken on that same day at the same time. You'll notice that in the TV weather map, the infrared satellite image, which is shown right here on the upper right, is superimposed over the TV weather image with the black parts taken out as transparency, so you can see the cloud cover that's shown on the TV weather is in fact coming from the GOES infrared image. The infrared image shows cloud heights and temperatures. We see that there's a band over here on the eastern part of Alaska, western Canada, where you have some thick clouds. But in the interior Alaska, where we have this high pressure system in the TV weather map, we see an absence of clouds, maybe a few low clouds, thin clouds there, but no real thick high cloud tops in this area. And in the Gulf of Alaska, where we see the high pressure is at just behind the cold front, we see no clouds at all in the GOES image. Where this cold front is pushing across the Gulf of Alaska, we see a bunch of clouds, or a little bit of clouds in this IR image. We can also see massive clouds over to in the Bering Sea where this storm is forming in the TV weather image. We've looked down here on the bottom left, we see the visible satellite image. This is what your eye would see if you were in space looking down. And we see that once again we have large areas of cloud cover in eastern Alaska and down over the Gulf of Alaska to the south. But the area where there's high pressure over the Gulf of Alaska is very clear, and interior Alaska appears to be fairly clear as well. But you can see there's thicker cloud over here in the Bering Sea where the low pressure system is forming near Russia. The water vapor image on the lower right is similar in that it includes high amounts of water vapor where the thick band of clouds was in eastern Canada, or eastern Alaska, western Canada. Low amounts of water vapor in the Gulf of Alaska, and not very much either in interior Alaska where the clear skies are prevailing and the high pressure system is. But we see a splotch of high water vapor content over the Bering Sea where the low pressure system is forming.